Well, our next one is similar. One of their competitors, I mean, indirect competitors of sorts, JP Morgan, has been playing around with something kind of crypto related for the past couple of years. They started this, when was it, in 2020? Oh, wow, I thought it was older than that. But anyway, honestly, a pretty early play for a bank as big as JP Morgan. They basically have a permissioned token system for kind of peer-to-peer payments intra-bank within parties that they actually know and trust and everything like that. And it's gotten up to $1 billion of daily volume, which is kind of crazy because over the course of the 3 years they've been running it, it has processed 300 billion. So at this pace, they're probably going to hit that amount just this year. But of course, that is, as this article points out, a tiny, tiny fraction of the payments that they actually handle. $10 trillion daily. Right?
Yeah.
Right? That's absolutely, absolutely insane. However, like I mentioned, this is, of course, permissioned. We've actually talked to a handful of different kind of well-established large companies out there that like a lot of aspects of this technology, but they're scared of the permissionless part.
Sure.
And especially when they're just playing around with B2B, like in this case, it just kind of doesn't make sense for them to do so. The only real reason for permissionless payments is when you want to make sure that anyone can authorize a transaction, can make sure that that transaction is legitimate without needing to know who that party is, so that you know if you've given them the authority to do so, they're not going to abuse that authority. So if you just build it as a permissioned system, you kind of know everyone involved and you don't actually have to kind of turn that over to something as simple as kind of proof of work. However, they do talk about that their next stage in this is building a retail version of it. Now, I assume that they're planning to just do their retail version also permissioned. However, I just really wonder over time if they ultimately decide that that isn't worth the effort, because as we know from Web 2, handling permissions of end users means, logging credentials, and those can easily be, stolen, obviously, by any number of parties and stuff like that. And so kind of who's handling the actual confirmation of transactions is that I think what a lot of them don't really understand is that something like proof of work makes it trustworthy without needing to know who it is.
Yep, that's right.
And that's a fantastic system. So it's just kind of nice to see major banks, actually experimenting with this stuff at the edges. I don't obviously, like I said, like that it's permissioned, but I think it's kind of their first step. They're just kind of experimenting a little bit.
Here's where I get kind of confused is why?
Why what?
Why
do it without the? Well, think about how many different aspects.
Why not just have a database?
Well, that's basically what they've got.
Yeah.
That's functionally what they've got.
It's like a more complex, more resource intensive database.
Not necessarily. It doesn't need to be more resource intensive. I would argue that there's a lot of aspects of a blockchain that are beneficial. Like just a simple ledger is the way that a blockchain just keeps a single ledger with debits and credits is simpler than the way that a lot of banks have kind of handled that kind of concept in the past.
That's fair.
So just borrowing that concept alone can increase efficiency, and it means it can run 24/7. It doesn't need to depend on the clearing.
A new ledger protocol.
Yes.
Where maybe
exactly.
It's kind of upgrading their existing ledger protocol because their existing one is from 600 years ago. ish, exactly. Especially because this is just inside their own system. It doesn't need to have the level of complexity that a normal blockchain does, kind of thing. So it doesn't necessarily need to use, public keys and, stuff like that. So I don't know. I think honestly that the biggest benefit is the fact that they're getting off of something that depends entirely on kind of manual effort, which is what you need for interbank kind of stuff in the first place, like Swift and stuff like that. However, since this is only inside and doesn't work with kind of retail customers, we'll see if it can keep up that same level of efficiency without borrowing all of the other aspects of blockchain technology. Yeah, I guess I hope it's a step in the right direction.
Exactly.
And
that's
that it
where
ultimately leads to, some sort of open system, because
that's what we need. We need more of those. Exactly. I think we've just been brainwashed over the past really only not very long, 100 years or so, where governments were in control of money, were the only issuer of money. Most of history, money was issued by whoever was trustworthy enough to issue it, and they grew that trust by handling it properly and stuff like that. And that wasn't necessary. It almost was never really governments, honestly, because no one's really trusted governments. They're always, trying to take more. So I think that was just a short-term kind of, oopsie in the way that we organize things. And hopefully this is just a step in the direction of correcting that, making it a really open system that anyone can participate in.